Hi everyone, in this video we are going to be swatching, doing an eye look, and reviewing the new Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina Pro Pigment Palette Volume 1. So if you're curious about the quality of the shadows in here and what they really look like on the skin, then keep watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel by hitting that red subscribe button. Check out the latest video, which I will link for you in the upper right hand corner. Follow Allura Beauty on Instagram and keep watching. So this palette just recently launched. You can buy it on the ABH website, at Sephora and Ulta. It retails for $60, and I will put a link in the description box below to where you can purchase it and find it, as well as a link to eBay so that if you do purchase online, you will get cash back on your order. The description says this is a professional grade artistry palette featuring 25 deluxe size high performance shades with maximum payoff, curated by Norvina herself. It is vegan, cruelty free, and gluten free. And you can see that it's very different from any other Anastasia Beverly Hills palette that they've released prior to this one. The palette itself is made of, I would say, moderately heavy plastic. It's not the most travel friendly, but it's also not super bulky. Here's a look at the front a little bit closer. It does have a magnetic closure, and you get a full-sized mirror here, and you get 5 rows of 5 eyeshadows. And what's interesting is you can see the names here. They don't really have names. They have a number followed by, or I'm sorry, they have a letter followed by a number. Here's a look at the shades up close, as I do with any swatch video. I will swatch these by row from left to right. I use an eyeshadow brush to do so, and I do also swatch the shades over eyeshadow primer. The palette is limited edition, and it says to apply the pigments with a small dense brush, which is the kind of brush that I typically use. It also says there is little pressure that is needed when picking up the product. So I will do that. I will try to be light in terms of my application of pressure when I'm picking up the shadow in the pans. It also says that you can use the bright shades on the cheeks as blushes. Okay, so let's start with A1. I'm using lighter pressure than I typically would, but if I find that it leads to a swatch that isn't what I expect with my other videos, I'm going to go back to picking them up as I would normally. So A1 is a metallic lilac with a cool pink reflect. Applies fairly well with slightly less pressure than I would normally use. A2. And this is a matte mid-toned vivid violet. This is a pressed pigment. A3. This is a matte rich plum. This is also a pressed pigment. A4. This is a metallic golden copper. A5. I'm definitely using less pressure than I normally would to pick these up. And this is a matte, vibrant, warm candy pink. And this is a pressed pigment. B1. This is a matte, vivid lilac. This is a pressed pigment. B2. And this is a metallic rosy bronze with gold sparkles. B3. And this is a metallic platinum rose. It says with gold sparkles. Looks pretty silver to me. So maybe silver and gold. B4. And this is a matte, deep, cool violet. This is a pressed pigment. B5. And this is a matte, deep, cool plum. Also a pressed pigment. C1. And this is a matte bright white. C2. Is a metallic yellow gold. C3 is a metallic deep rose with gold sparkles. C4 is a matte mauve plum. And this is a pressed pigment. And C5 is a matte burnt sienna brown. This is also a pressed pigment. All right, there are your first 3 rows, A, B, and C. I made sure on all of the pans to use less pressure than I typically would picking up the product. I'm really impressed by the color payoff and intensity pigmentation that I got, even while using less product and less pressure than I typically would. Next up is D1. And this is a matte primary yellow. D2. And this is a shimmering blue purple. And even though this is metallic, this is also apparently a pressed pigment. D3. Matte primary red. And this is a pressed pigment. D4. A sparkling matte, wow, primary blue with blue sparkles. And this is a pressed pigment. D5. And this is a matte black pressed pigment. E1. And this is a shimmering peach gold. Another pressed pigment. E2. This is a matte pastel orange, pressed pigment. E3. And this is a matte ochre yellow. 4. Matte neon orange, pressed pigment, and E5. Matte oxblood, also a pressed pigment. All right, there are the last 2 rows, rows D and E. Once again, made sure to use pretty light pressure. Phenomenal matte pigments. Those oranges and that primary red one is wow. And then the sparkling pressed pigments, incredible too. That peachy gold, definitely going to use that one on the lid. So I did a look with some of the shades in the palette, 2 of the matte shades and that peachy gold shimmering shade. And the thing that I immediately noticed was when I went to go choose the first shade to lay down on my eyes, I had trouble. I feel like there's not really a great transition shade in here to match with a lot of looks. There are matte shades you could use for transition shades if you are looking for a very specific look, like a very pink or purple look, or super warm toned brownish look, but you don't have a lot of options for something that will match with a lot of different looks that you may be wanting to try. I also found that although these blend out pretty nicely and have nice pigmentation, they blend away. So I actually had to layer the crease, the 2 matte crease shades. I had to layer them about 3 times until I got the final look, and I usually don't have to do that with most other eyeshadows. I was surprised by that. The shimmering shade on the lid was not that impressive when I laid it down with a very dense flat brush. It improved a lot when I applied it with my finger and then when I applied it with a dampened brush. So I have to say that my initial impressions on swatching were quite good, but then practically using these, I was not that impressed. I don't think that I would otherwise go out and spend $60 on this palette. And I don't think that it is that versatile. Again, I think if you're looking for a very pink or purple look or an extremely warm toned look, you have what you need in this palette, but otherwise you don't. And I realize that this is a quote-unquote pro palette, but on the other hand, it is targeted towards and sold in a way that it will be bought by the mass consumer. I don't think that this will really go into a lot of truly pro makeup artists kits. I think people who normally buy ABH palettes will be the main demographic that purchases this. So in that sense, I really think the versatility of the palette is limited. But I will continue to use this. I'll try some other looks and see if I like the shades that I look for those looks better. And I'll let you know in this month's What's New in Beauty video, any sort of updated thoughts that I have. In the meantime, if you've used this palette, please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below, or any other comments that you have on the swatches or the video. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you're curious about this palette, please give the video a thumbs up if you have a couple seconds. As always, thanks so much for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next video.